In 2012, Landcare research scientists began a 5-year trial to measure greenhouse gas emissions following a conversion from dryland grazing to high-intensity dairying. Landcare was looking for innovators in the dairy industry to work alongside, and Synlait Farms volunteered to host the trial.
So the gases that we're looking at are CO2, nitrous oxide and methane. The greenhouse gas emissions, at least for nitrous oxide and certainly for carbon uptake, are very different depending on which soils that you're on. And so the emissions from cows of methane may be the same, but if looking at those other two greenhouse gases, it may be very different. So it may be wrong to apply a generalised emission factor for all parts of New Zealand. So you may want to do it on a regional basis rather than for the whole of New Zealand. I think it'll be something that would go into overseer but may not be seen by the farmers. And so it'd be lower down in the code, so to speak, so that the farmers can't see it, but it'll actually give overseer better estimates of these things. So it's not a tool for the farmers to use directly, but it'll go into making overseer a better model for them to be using. We've got our first results already, and it was quite exciting when they did occur. I mean, it took us 4 months to set it up, and then the cows came in. And then immediately the next day we could see our results. But already we're giving results to Synlait to look at, to compare and to see how they may change their management measures in the future.
Synlait was approached by Landcare Research as an innovative leader in this area, and traditionally this was a dryland sheep and beef property running some deer, unirrigated, and in around 2007 it was converted to dairy. It's a fully irrigated dairy farm apart from around 60 hectares that's dry land where some of this trial's been undertaken on. We thought that it was really important to enable some good science, practical science, and get some good policy as a result, and therefore perhaps guide some of our thinking going forward on possible mitigations to emissions trading scheme for agriculture.
We've got two sites, one here in the irrigated area, and we call this the wet side because it's got irrigation, it's got a new pasture on it, and this is where the cows are grazing. And we've got another area over in the dryland area, what it was before they converted it into this pasture. And so we measure 3 or 4 things here. One of the things that we're measuring is the background weather, and that's wind speed and wind direction and temperature. We're measuring what's happening below ground. So this is soil temperature and soil moisture at different depths. We're looking at rain and the amount of irrigation going on. And then we've got 2 separate systems for measuring the greenhouse gases. One of them measures CO2 and the other one that measures methane and nitrous oxide. All up, it's probably $500,000 worth or so of equipment that we've put in here, and probably easily the same amount in time and other gear that we've had to put in. With measurements on methane on cows, our particular system, it measures everything that's happening upwind within the paddock. So there's no interference with the cows at all. They're doing their natural grazing, their natural moving around. And we capture that information from upwind, and it might be an area of 4 or 5 hectares that we're getting the data from. For CO2, we're using a technique called eddy covariant. And the technique relies on air moving towards us and carrying the CO2 concentration with it. And so during the day when the plants are photosynthesizing and they're taking up CO2, the packets of air moving down have a higher concentration of CO2 than ones moving up. So we measure the vertical wind speed and the concentration of CO2, and so every half hour we can tell whether the pastures have absorbed or given off CO2. Because we're measuring how much CO2 goes in each day and how much comes out at night, the difference between them is how much stays in the pasture. We're also measuring pasture before and after the cows have been in here, so we know how much carbon's taken away, and therefore what's left has gone into the soil. And in the future we hope to do more work on that sequestration of the carbon into the soil.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.